Hello VC, this is Dave in Texas, and as you can see it's been stormy here all this morning. In fact, I got woke up by a thunderclap while I was dreaming, and it sort of incorporated itself in my dream and finally when I realized what it was, I woke up. But anyway, I got up and had some coffee and started looking at some YouTube videos, and I saw a YouTube video by Steve Carlson on there, and he was actually showing us his his artwork, and he's pretty good. I don't know if his cat put him up to that, or maybe his cat taught him how to draw or something like that, but it was kind of a psychedelic drawing that he did. Maybe his cat slipped something into his morning coffee, I don't know. But anyway, the drawing was for Nauman's channel, and I'll leave a link below. Nauman has a varied channel, which I like. He's done cooking videos, and he did some videos on bonsai tree, how to create bonsai trees. And of course he's done videos on vinyl collecting as well, and drawing. He did a lot of artwork, so he's interested in arts and music and all facets of that, science fiction, probably comics too. But anyway, he has a contest going on, and like I said, I'll leave a link. And there's one or two or three different ways you can go, to enter if you want to. You can either just show just about any kind of art. You can show album art, or DVD art, or book art. And then to get another qualification, just draw something, which could be a stick figure. You can do a stick figure of yourself or your cat or whatever. And he showed the vinyl album War of the Worlds, which is a really neat album. So I thought I would show this album here, which is Rick Wakeman's album, Journey to the Center of the Earth, which is sort of a concept album, very close to what he showed. And of course, Rick Wakeman used to be in the band called Yes, and as a keyboardist. There he is right there. I don't know if my camera's set up just right. I'm going to have to use this camera and swing it around. I don't edit my videos, so you'll have to kind of bear with me a little bit. But just like the War of the Worlds album that he showed, now this is just a one record set. This is very similar, as there's some narration on it, and then music too. So it's kind of it's pretty much in the concept album mode. And this was recorded back in January 18th of 1974 with the London Symphony Orchestra and the English Chamber Choir. And it's conducted by David Misham, and the narration on here is by David Hemmings. So yeah, I was always a fan of H.G. Wells, and I'm a big science fiction fan, and I'm a comic fan, and just about any kind of fan like that. Here's a picture of the insides. It's the gatefold, and that's Wakeman right there inside a cavern looking thing. That cavern reminds me of the caverns up in New Mexico, Carlsbad Caverns, which is a tourist spot, and you can go down into the cave and look at all these formations in the cave, the stalactites and the stalagmites and what have you. It'll take you on a little tour. Pretty interesting. And then here's the whole thing like this. And then it kind of sets you up with an introduction to the album here, or introduction to the story. And I don't know if that's H.G. Wells' on thing, or somebody made that up. But then down here at the bottom where my thumb is, it's got a little blurb about I said H.G. Wells. I'm going to get those two mixed up, I'm sure. Jules Verne's. Jules Verne's created Journey to the Center of the Earth, but it says Jules Verne's was born in France in 1828 and died in 1905. A writer of comedies, librettos, and uncanny father of science fiction. His works fall little short of prophecies. His second book, Journey to the Center of the Earth, remains a fantasy and provided the inspiration for this work. So anyway, it also came with this little booklet here, sort of like the booklet that Nauman showed, and it has a little bit of the text in it, or the lyrics, and rather psychedelic in its design, but I guess those were the days, right? And some of them kind of go along with the way the book and movie are set up, but here you have the dinosaurs in it. And the back of the little booklet. But yeah, I would, Nauman, if you're looking for another album like that War of the Worlds album you showed, this would be a good one to pick up. It's Rick Wakeman's Journey to the Center of the Earth. And actually, I think they did another one of these. I like this one better. They did a remake of this with Patrick Stewart, who was one of the captains on Star Trek Next Generation, did the narration rather than this guy. But I don't know, this is the one I grew up with when I was younger, so I always prefer this one. But and I pulled out a few videos. This is H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. Again, they remade this movie, but I've always preferred this older one. It's got Rod Taylor in it, I believe it is, and Yvette Mimieux. And Alan Young also plays one of his friends in the movie. Of course, it's got the Morlocks in it, and it talks about him building this time machine, and he goes to the past and then he goes to the future, and meets up with the Eloy, of which she was one of. Here's another Jules Verne's. This is Mysterious Island. Always loved this one as a kid. Actually, I saw this at the cinema, and I'm pretty sure it probably just set me on my way to enjoy science fiction. I'd go to just about anything like this, with dinosaurs in it, or monsters. I was kind of a monster kid, as they say, but science fiction, flying saucers, and all that kind of good stuff. Then I bought this here recently because I was at Half Price Books. He showed War of the Worlds, and this was the TV War of the Worlds, and I haven't seen all of these. And the production value isn't the greatest on it because, it's TV rather than having the budget of a film. But it's fairly interesting, and it's kind of like, what if the aliens, rather than we killing off all the aliens like it showed in the movie or the book, some of them still existed, and they escaped and kind of woke up later. I believe they're in a military facility, and they woke up and come back to life and want to take over the world again. And so yeah, pretty interesting. I don't know where you can find this, but I'm sure you can find it used somewhere. And of course, I've got all kind of books here. This is one on Masters of the Imagination. That's Will Eisner there, and he's sitting there drawing the spirit. And this is just a book of various, comic art and everything. It has all kind of comic art in it. There's Basil Warburton. You don't hear much about him these days, but yeah, he was real big back in the 50s and early 60s. He's done everything from illustrating biblical stories to science fiction and just weird stories. It has some Walt Disney art. This is Donald Duck and, you know, his nephew Uncle Scrooge and all that type thing. Here's Jack Cole, who did Plastic Man, I believe is his claim to fame. And of course Jack Kirby's in here, and you know, he's got to be in here. He's the king of comics, right? So I had it, but anyway, he's in here, and this is by Mike Benton. It's a really neat book if you like that sort of thing. But anyway, I was going to show these. I used to read comics a lot when I was a kid, and somewhere along the line I started, you know, I like superhero comics like everybody does when they're a kid, whether they be, you know, the Incredible Hulk or Richie Rich. And, you know, I grew up in the 60s, so I was pretty much a Marvel fan. You know, I like Jack Kirby's art and Spider-Man by Steve Ditko and all that type of stuff. Somewhere in the late 80s and into the 90s, I started picking up these autobiographical comics, and I think the first one I picked up was Harvey Pekar's American Splendor. And what they were was just him telling autobiographical stories about himself, you know, washing dishes at home, doing laundry, going out and finding albums. As a matter of fact, he was a big vinyl collector back in the day, him and R. Crumb. And, you know, collecting albums, trying to trade albums, or him reading a book, or him going to go see Sun Ra live. And you know, he used to write for Downbeat magazine, but there were a lot of autobiographical comics back then. He wasn't the only one. I mean, R. Crumb started doing a autobiographical thing, and there was a guy named Matt who did a comic called Peep Show, and you know, Chester Brown did a Yummy Fur, and oh golly, there was a bunch of them, and unfortunately, not much of that stuff is done anymore. But I was kind of inspired by that type thing, and I did my own little comic book here. This is called Easy Money, if I can get it right. A mini novella by me, and I don't know if I can show much of this, but let's see. It says Broken, shows a water faucet there, and I just illustrated it, and it tells a little story about, you know, life. And you know, it says, like the time I was on vacation, I broke my glasses, and it's not the end of the world. It just illustrates how tentative accidents and mishaps occur seemingly right out of the blue. Thank God for silver linings. And however, it sure bums me out momentarily. And then to paraphrase famous author Charles Bukowski, it's not the big things in life that drag you down. It's the small ones, the leaky faucet, the leaky toilet, the car that won't start, etc., etc. And so it's just a small autobiography about my day, and I think I wrote about some car troubles, and so on and so forth. And it's a little, I don't know, 20-page mini comic I did. And then here's another one that I did. It's a little bit bigger in size, which is about a vacation I took back in '95. And it's got the back of it with me on the back as a kid, first grade picture. And the art in it is a little bit different. You know, I was trying some different styles, and it was just me talking about Dallas. And this is a picture inset of Dallas, Texas, of the downtown area. And I include some maps and what have you. And this is what they called a mini comic back then. And I was pretty much into zine culture back then, which was before the internet actually got started. This was before I had my any computers or anything, and before computers had, you know, a GUI interface and all that kind of thing. And you would keep up with them through little publications like this. This is a small press creative explosion, and it's by a guy named, if I can find his name on here, I may not. I don't see it. His name, Tim something, but you know, Tim Corrigan. He has since passed away. But you know, these came out, and you'd subscribe to this magazine by mail, and then you'd get it, and then he talks about fan stuff in here, but you could also order, you know, other people's fanzines, like I created here, and like you could either buy them for $1 or something like that, or you could trade yours for, you know, one of theirs. So I was into that, and what he would do is he would review a lot of the fanzines in here, different ones, and you could, you know, learn about other people's fanzines, and he would profile different ones, and just kind of profile stuff in general. Here on the front cover, he, if you ever read Mad Magazine, you'll recognize Spy versus Spy there, which is the white spy and the black spy. Well, evidently the artist of this died during this, and his name is Antonio Fojias, I guess. He was born in 1921 and died in 1988. But he did a little, you know, article talking about Antonio here. So anyway, that's what kind of got me into doing my own mini comics. And here's another one here. This is one I picked up from a gal that lives up in Alabama. And what she does, it's called Not My Small Diary. She requests from different people to submit their cartoons, and then she collects them all, combines them all, and puts them in her diaries. This happens to be issue 5 of hers. It's $1. And of course, like I said, it's a collaborative effort from a lot of different cartoonists, which are listed here. And she selected me for one of these. I'm on page 32. I can find it real quick. Yeah, here I am. And it's just called A Day in the Life. Oops, right here. And up in the top panel here, kind of talks about me sitting at the kitchen table working on a comic and gluing everything down, and I talk about seeing a gray heron out of a lake where I was living there back in West Texas, and then time turns short, so I have to take a shower and I do the dishes, and while I'm doing the dishes, before I go to work, I'll put on some rubber gloves that I used to use when I was doing dishes, and I felt something in the rubber glove and yanked it off, and a scorpion fell out of the glove. West Texas was real bad. Well, that was about one of their major bugs out there, which I didn't like, but they did have scorpions, and you didn't see them every once in a while, but ever so often. I actually stepped on one night, and they sting you pretty good. But I guess before this gets too long, I better draw something, or you know, I don't want to take too long in uploading this. So let's see if I can draw something. And I think what I'm going to do is just draw me, because that's what I'm familiar with the most. And so let's see if we can do this. Like I said, I don't edit anything, and but I will try and do this the best I can, and see how it goes. So I kind of look like this. If you use yourself as models, which a lot of artists do, I mean, you know, Van Gogh or whoever it might be, or is it Van Gogh? You know, they use themselves as models, and that's because, you know, you're one of the accessible models, you know, around. So here we go, and this is just a quick thing. So it's kind of what I look like, and I think rather than wearing glasses, I think what I'm going to do is I'll make a mask out of this, and I'll be my own superhero. So there you go. So it's raining today. I guess I'll put in a little rain. And I'll put in a little word balloon. And I'll say rain. And that's what it looks like. So anyway, Nauman, wanted to enter your contest and show some support, and hopefully this video isn't too shaky and googly and you can make some sense of it. But I had a bunch of stuff I was going to show, and I knew I wouldn't have time to show it all. Like I used to also take these fanzines here. This is Rocket Blast Comic Collector. Maybe I can show some of these at some time in the future. This is another one. This is the theme of this issue is about King Kong, and I thought it was really interesting. I used to love King Kong when it would show on TV, although it gave me nightmares like all of them did. And like I said, these are self-produced by a guy named John Van Heist, I believe is his name. He's out of California. He's still around. And there's the crew of that made King Kong. That's O'Brien, Willis O'Brien, Marion C. Cooper, Fay Ray, and etc., and some extras that played the natives in the film. Willis O'Brien, the man who loved dinosaurs. And this whole thing is just sort of you know, fan produced, and kind of done on fairly decent paper, but it's just one more of the things I was into back at the time. Here's the Submariner on the back, probably by Cary Gamble, you know, who was an artist that lived down in, I think he still lives in Oklahoma actually. But yeah, I did that, and I think I had some I used to go to the comic conventions too. Here's Ray Harryhausen that was at the Dallas Fantasy Fair back when they had those. Those were always a lot of fun. Always a lot of bunch of artists and like real cool fantasy novelists. And I saw Arkrum there, and oh golly, a bunch of different people. Clive Barker was there one time, and even the guy that played Batman, I can't think of his name right off the top of my hand. Here's one from the San Diego Con I went to in '94. But wanted to enter your contest, Naaman, and I hope you do well with it. And just wanted to show you some stuff and not make it too long. So I hope you get a good response, not only from maybe some of the people in the violent community, but he's opened it up for people that are in the art community as well, which is a good idea. And that's one of the reasons I actually chose my moniker, the name of my channel is Pop Culture, or Culture Fan, excuse me. Was just because, maybe I wanted to talk to about some other topics aside from music, because I do have a lot of interests like science fiction and books and movies and what have you. So I hope that y'all have an interesting day, and I hope it's not quite as wet as it is here. It's supposed to rain here all week, so anyway, I'll let you go and talk to you later. Bye-bye.